Hey, good morning. Scott Luton and Greg White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Gregory, how we doing?
Pretty good. Is it Monday again?
It is Monday again. I tell
Doesn't
you, it's
seem like
just
it was just Monday. Right.
the world is turning faster and faster and faster. But yeah, it sounds like it felt like we just knocked out the buzz, just like yesterday afternoon. It feels like, huh?
Well, we were on for live streams a few days last week, so it kind of yeah. And I think
So
we're gonna be seeing some people again a few times this week, right?
we sure are. It's gonna be Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is gonna be our theme this week for sure. Lots and lots of conversations and action to be driving via our programming here at Supply Chain Now. We're going to touch on some of that momentarily. But thanks for joining us here for Supply Chain Buzz, where Greg and I tackle some of the leading stories across global business every Monday at 12 noon Eastern Time. All right, so Greg, we've got a special guest joining us about 12:25 today. Matt Fitzgerald with Six River Systems are going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about a variety of things, including the highly competitive labor market across industry. So buckle up, folks. Get ready. We want to hear from you too. Greg, before we say hello to some folks, before we share some programming notes, I want to know what the Hilton Head Global Supply Chain Logistics Transportation Scientific Index is at this morning.
I love that. We need to put together an
Come up with that acronym,
acronym
right?
for that. Not sure we want to spell what that might spell, but I can tell you what it spells today, and it's delay. So I've adapted the index somewhat. It was about five. It was five outside of the port of Savannah today, and it was 28 outside the port of Charleston today,
Wow.
which, believe it or not, is down. And we're going to talk about an initiative by the U.S. government and some other companies that are trying to figure out how to overcome this delay. So
Right.
it's going to be interesting to talk about that. But it wasn't that long ago, Scott, that the ports on the East Coast were bragging about their ability to throughput ships. So ships started coming to the East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. And what we've realized is that the volume that was being delayed on the West Coast was so substantial that now it's starting to shift delays basically to virtually every port on the U.S. coast. So
where is Sylvia
amazing.
Judy when we need her? We're going to have to get a boots on the ground report from what's going on in Charleston. But
I'm going to volunteer for that boots on the ground report, Scott, as long as I get to do it in Charleston
that's
at Hall's, the steakhouse for
well,
dinner.
that's the on ground part. So it comes to the territory. So let's
Right?
make that happen and enjoy a good dinner afterwards. Hey, before we get started, we're going to say hello to a few folks that already joined us here today, but I want to share just a couple of quick announcements. So again, the 2022 Supply Chain and Procurement Awards, Greg, nominations continue to be open for about 10 more days. April 1st is when they all have to be in. We've
Now
got
conveniently aligned with or near the start of Major League Baseball season.
That was all planned. That was
Yeah,
all
I figured.
planned.
I figured that's what it was.
So, folks, we've got 8 or 9 different categories. We've got a variety of leadership-oriented awards, digital transformation, automation, logistics, something for everybody. Manufacturing excellence, I believe. But you can learn more at supplychainprocurementawards.com. And it doesn't matter where you're located. It doesn't matter where your operations or your people, products, warehouse, you name it, where all that's located. Companies across the globe are all eligible. So check that out, supplychainprocurementawards.com. Greg,
I was
we've
just
got
going to make that one
yeah,
qualification, Scott, and that is
yeah.
Earth is preferred as a location for your company. So,
That's an important distinction. Yes.
nominations for Mars or planets beyond are not accepted.
So on that note, let's talk about the globe, as in the Global Upstate International Business and Foreign Affairs Conference. Greg, you and Kevin L. Jackson both are going to be speaking at this conference. It takes place March 28th through the 31st, and registrations are also open. Greg, what you looking forward to there?
Really getting to meet and talk about world events with people from around the world. I mean, this is not solely a U.S. perspective or even a South Carolina perspective on what's going on in both international political affairs and international business. We're going to get to meet people from all over the globe, have some panels to talk about technology and supply chain in addition to geopolitical affairs and other types of international and governmental affairs. So it's going to be very interesting talking about things like, what we can expect from China in coming years from a more geopolitical perspective rather than just a business or supply chain perspective. So that's going to be interesting and should help shape how we approach business going forward.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that. Again, March 29th through the 31st. Registration's open. It's going to be held in Greenville and Spartanburg, so y'all check that out. Looks like our team, big thanks to Catherine and Chantel, behind the scenes driving production, have dropped the link in the chat, so y'all check that out. And then finally, we have just assembled. So Greg, our dear friends at Vector Global Logistics, they're involved in a wide array of humanitarian efforts, and not all. I mean, it's core to who they are as a company. Books to Africa, eyeglasses to families and kids in need. I think in South America, that's just part of what they do. So we got together, and we want to lean on their expertise and facilitation relationships to help marshal resources. So join us this Wednesday, 3 p.m., March 23rd, as we attempt to leverage the logistics within our network for Ukraine. So they're already involved in very specific needs and being able to get the resources to meet those needs based on their relationships and their organization and what they do. And we want to kind of have a clearinghouse. We're going to see this is highly experimental, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. But, it comes, Greg, from a place where we want to do something, whatever we can do. You give from what you have, and we want to do something to help address some of the needs and atrocities that are going on in Ukraine due to the Russian invasion. Your quick take there, Greg.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked to a number of people in the last couple of weeks about what we can do. I think it's important to do something, and what we're trying to do is create an outlet where just one more place where you can find a legitimate place to get funds or products or whatever to people in need. Right.
That's right. And this comes on the heels of having a wide variety of folks that are in Poland, in Ukraine. As Greg mentioned, we've spoken to. We feature some on the shows to help get the word out about ways you can help, vetted ways. So this is in that vein. Join us 3 p.m. It's open to folks that want to help, regardless of what you do. If we could, we did not grab that link. That's my bad, Catherine and Chantel. If we can drop Amanda's email address in the chat, if you want to be a part of that, shoot Amanda an email, and we'll get you a link out to sign up for that call on Wednesday. Okay, so Greg, on a much lighter note, ask and ye shall receive. We have Sylvia Judy with us right here.
I have a feeling she's always there, just not always sounding off. So,
well, I'm sure she's working, doing supply chain stuff
question.
For sure.
Yeah, she's trying to clear that backlog in Charleston is what she's doing. Probably single-handedly would be my guess.
Sylvia, great to have you here. Aaron Davis tuned in via LinkedIn. Great to have you here. Let us know where you're dialed in from, what part of the world. Sheldon Rose is back. We've enjoyed Sheldon's perspective, huh?
Yep. On and off live streams. Yeah. I mean, he's making some great observations and suggestions around the supply chain.
Agreed. Of course, Jose Montoya.
Thank goodness. Now we know we've got SoCal on the air. That's good.
That's right. Host of Logistics and Coffee, which is a great stream, takes place. Jose, great to have you, fellow kindred spirit. Hey, Josh Goody's with us. Tuned in again from Seattle, right, Greg?
Yes. We need to know the state of Seattle this time. Is it warm and sunny? Is it cold and damp? Is it rainy and dreadful?
Right.
Dreadful and rainy. Yeah.
Or is it Washington? But regardless, let us know what the weather's like up in that neck of the woods, Josh. Great to have you back.
Yes.
All right. So, Greg, before we welcome on our esteemed guest, Matt Fitzgerald with Six River Systems, we're gonna walk through 3 stories that we're tracking. Are you ready to go?
I am.
Well, let's do that. Let me share this here. So the first program, the first story up here in this article via Supply Chain Dive, the White House has announced an initiative last week that they're calling, catch this, Greg, the Freight Logistics Optimization Works Initiative. Flow for short, I guess, is what they're going to be referring to. That it's led by the U.S. Department of Transportation. Is focused, as Greg alluded to on the front end, on developing a much more effective information sharing system across the ports, shippers, carriers, 3PLs, all the stakeholders, right? The pilot is limited to just 15 companies and just a few ports, including, Greg, I believe, if I read this right, the Georgia Ports Authority.
That's correct. So that would include Brunswick and Savannah. So
right. So, Greg, your take on this development here?
I remember when they first started talking about this, the fear of God was struck into me that the government might be building a technology solution. It appears now that it's more a data facilitation initiative, which is good. In my opinion, some of this data is public property, not the property of even its originators or generators. So I think that's a good thing. The companies that are in it drive a ton of volume. I think it's a prudent approach to use I think it was San Pedro. Is that the port that they used on the West Coast?
I believe.
And the Georgia ports, relatively lower volume. So you test the system and break it on low volume before you test the system and break it at higher volume to kind of work the bugs and the kinks out. So that's a good approach from a startup standpoint. A lot of the companies that are involved have a ton of power: C.H. Robinson, UPS, FedEx, Target. I'm trying to think who else. There's another big brand there. What's that?
That's a list of who's who.
Yeah, CMA, CGM, the shipping companies and that sort of thing. So I think they've covered a lot of commerce, and I think that will be helpful. So, we'll have to see how this evolves. But I think it's, the two words that scared me. One is flow, because it almost seems like, as in many government initiatives, they force fit the initiative to fit the acronym, rather than building an acronym around the goals of the initiative. And the other is voluntary, not mandatory, compliance with the requests of this this methodology. So there's got to be a way to make it mandatory, compulsory, whatever you want to call it, so that everyone has to contribute data to this. Because the goal is to provide data that gives insight to the people that you will be impacting. A port ahead of time, ahead of showing up, right? A supplier ahead of placing an order, all of those things. So it's important that companies contribute to this. But hey, it's a start. So
it is a start. It is a start. I love your take on all of that, Greg. A lot of stuff wasn't even in the article. So I appreciate you. You got your finger on the pulse as always. And I appreciate you sharing some of your take there. Let's really quick. I think Amanda, I know you're doing some major multitasking. If I can add one more task, if you don't mind, Amanda, the link for the leveraging logistics for Ukraine. If you could drop that when you get a chance, drop that in the chat so folks can join that Wednesday call. So thanks so much, Amanda, and appreciate all that you do. Speaking of, we got Todd Craig, old TC, is tuned in today.
Whoa.
Todd, how are you doing?
Yeah. Tell us what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, we'd welcome it. Talk about fingers.
You're probably seeing a beach. My guess is certainly he wouldn't be tuning in from his kids' spring break, would he?
I don't know.
Maybe a couple weeks early for that.
Well, Todd, hope this finds you well. Great to have you here. Larry Costello, good morning. New here from Houston, Texas.
Another port that's getting a shift of volume from the West Coast as well, right? The initial port that we first started talking about, which seems like 5 years ago, but it was probably about a year ago,
right,
that we started to see that shift towards Houston.
Well, Larry, great to have you here. We love Houston. Everything but the Astros. A little friendly, vibe there. But
hey, you're friendly. I'm not.
Yeah. Aaron's from Houston as well. A small world. Josh has given us that weather report you asked for. Still rainy and cold. kind of miss the Eastern Desert near Richland.
Hmm.
How about that? Sylvia, teamwork.
Spokane. Yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work. As always, Sylvia. Mohib from where, Greg?
Wichita State. Go Shocks.
That's right. Air capital of the world. Greg is representing today. Hey, and finally, Divine is back with us. Divine Sports and Mentorship Inc. Good morning from Texas. Great to see you back here with us, Divine. Okay, so Greg, moving right along, let's move to this next story here before we bring on again Matt Fitzgerald with Six River Systems is going to be here with us about 12:25. So next up, so we all remember the Ever Given, right, which was stuck in Suez Canal. Really, it continues. We're still in some cases catching up from that incident. Well, its sister ship, the Ever Forward, has become stuck recently in the Chesapeake Bay. So according to Transport Topics and the Coast Guard, the vessel has essentially gotten stuck in the mud for about a week, just outside, Greg, what's called the Craig Hill Channel. So that's evidently it's the deepest part of the Chesapeake Bay that's meant for container ships. It's a primary lane for container ships moving in and out of the area. So, Greg, what say you?
My first thought was Evergreen needs to rename their company to Everground. But other than that, my guess is, because this was just outside the channel, my guess is yet another one of their ships has broken down, lost steering or propulsion, and drifted onto something like this. It is a law in this port that a foreign-owned ship must be piloted by a harbor pilot who would never have gone outside the channel and run it aground. So I can only guess that the ship must have broken, though they aren't reporting that right now. They're still investigating and also trying to keep the ship from breaking up, monitoring for fuel loss and that sort of thing. So the reason that it could be weeks is that this went aground at high tide, full moon, and the next tide, probably high enough to float this ship without taking a substantial amount of cargo off of it, is the next full moon. Or in some cases, depending on the harbor, it could be the next new moon, which I've realized from now being so close to the coast that that's also when you get very high tides. So
how about that?
So
man,
it's a couple weeks to 28 days away from when this ship got grounded.
Thankfully, and of course, we hope that the ship stays intact. But thankfully, ships are still able to navigate around, so it's not clogging.
Since it got outside the channel, that's actually pretty good. Though it's requiring some, what they call one way, which basically means you got to line up, and one ship in, one ship out. But that's moments of delay relative to an entire voyage for a ship like that.
Well, did they miss the crew must have missed the day that Jimmy Buffett taught keep it within the navigational beacons, right?
That's right.
Life lessons. Well, thankfully,
right goes on the left side when you're leaving, or red goes on the left side.
Red, port,
red, right, return.
Wine. Yes, there you go. But regardless, thankfully, no one got hurt, and hopefully, it gets freed with no issues in the days, weeks ahead. We'll see. Gene Pledger is back with us. Gene of Northern Alabama, supply chain practitioner. Welcome.
We never
Gene.
asked what the weather's like in Northern Alabama, so Gene, let us know.
Yeah, give us that weather report. We're gonna blink, and it's gonna be the Weather Channel. Greg, everybody talks about the weather.
Then we don't have to be right, Scott. Maybe we should think about that.
All right. Sylvia echoes your sentiment. Evergreen is renamed to Everstuck.
Everstuck. Love it.
And Mohib is feeling the shocks this morning. Shock the world, he says. So again, a tip of the hat to Wichita State University. Okay. One final, Greg, before we bring on our guest here today, one final story here. Starbucks is finally looking to get rid of its disposable cups. So according to the Wall Street Journal, the company is currently experimenting with a reusable cup system. Of course, as you might imagine, it had to delay that a little bit in recent years due to the pandemic. But the overall initiative is driven in part by the company's efforts at cutting its waste sent to the landfill in half by 2030. So I don't know about you, Greg, but I've never liked using the cups. You get the cup, which is sturdy, lid, the installation ring. It's a lot, and I hate dropping those things in a trash can. I like using my own cups if I can, but it seems like a good move. Your thoughts, Greg?
Greenwashing. That's my first thought. Starbucks just got a new CEO, which is their old CEO, their founder, in the last few days. But of course, I applaud this initiative. If Starbucks really wants to contribute to reducing waste, they should close their drive-through forever. Shame on everyone who ever waits in line at a drive-through. You are all contributing to global warming, and and you're doing it not because it's faster. It is proven that it is much, much slower to go through a drive-through. You're too lazy to get out of your car. Get off your butt, get on your feet, get in line inside where it's warm or cool,
Right.
wherever you may be, and help save the planet. I mean, look, let's face it, Scott. Look, all these initiatives are all about responding to consumers and as lightly impacting their profits and revenues as much as possible, because they could have far more impact by simply closing the drive-thrus, but they're not going to do that because it's going to impact their top line. So this is as good as they can come up with now. So I guess we have to accept it. I probably, and by the way, meant to open that statement with, I want to apologize for my cynicism during these next few statements. So let me apologize in retrospect. I want to apologize for my cynicism in these past few statements. So.
Man, you're coming in hot today, Greg. I tell you what.
First of all, I am an incredibly impatient person, and I hate drive-thrus. I hated them first for having to wait in line, you had to wait in line to order, to wait in line to pay, to then wait in line to get your food. And it just never made sense to me. So I just simply parked and went inside. And then I realized it was so much faster. Then I saw some studies that said it is so much faster, and it reduces the carbon footprint of any human buying any product in any store by something like tenfold. It's ridiculous how much better it is for us. So that's the part we can all do, is to get off our lazy duffs and walk in the door.
Use those Chevrolets, right? Use those Chevrolets.
Oh, I like that. Chevrolet.
I stole that.
Hold on, I'm writing that down.
Write that down. I stole that from my dear friend Highland Wong back in the Air Force. So Highland, hope this finds you well wherever you are. Okay, so Greg, we're gonna get a few bonus minutes with our fearless friend here that's joining us in the live stream.
Hot dog, let's go get him.
Yeah, let's go ahead and welcome in Matt Fitzgerald, Director of Product Management with Six River Systems. Matt, good morning. How you doing?
Doing well, thanks. How you guys doing?
Doing wonderful. It's great to chat with you pre-show here today. And before we get started, we're going to be talking about a couple different things with you here today, from the labor market to Modex to some things that Six River Systems is up to. But Greg, we learned pre-show that Matt is he's a big sports fan, but in particular, he's a big Boston Bruins fan, right? Yeah. And one of his favorite figures of all time is Ray Bourque. Matt, you shared a little story about Ray Bourque on the front end. Tell us about that trophy.
Sure thing. Yeah. So I grew up, watching the Bruins. I still watch it today. And Ray Bourque is like a legend around here in Boston. And he got let go by the Bruins, went to the Avalanche when I was just starting out my career, actually. Yeah. And he won the cup. And it was like, the message was the Bruins let him go because everybody loves Ray, so he can go and win the cup. And being the kind of guy he is, he brought the cup back to Boston. We all went down to City Hall Plaza, big open space, and he brought it back and thanked the fans here just as much as I would imagine he did the Colorado fans. It was pretty moving, and he's still a member of the community and does things around the Boston area. So he's a great guy to continue to cheer for.
I love that, Greg. I love that story, man.
Yeah, no wonder everybody loves him. The Chiefs did a similar thing. They just made the mistake of giving Tony Gonzalez to the Atlanta Falcons in the hope that he might win the Super Bowl.
Ouch.
So misguided giving, unfortunately. But there was no reason to expect that they wouldn't. except that, they're the Falcons. So, but I think that's a great payoff, and I think it's brilliant. And I think another kind of tradition, and I don't know if Bork did this, but a lot of players come back and get a one-day $1 contract with their team so that they can retire as the team that they first started with or loved the most or whatever, which a lot of players do. I think that's a great tradition. It allows them to go into the Hall of Fame if they go, of course, as whatever team they want to. So,
Love that.
Yeah, I love it when players like that love their city so much that they want to share that with them. That's just a fantastic story. Gives you tingles.
It's a great one. And I think he loves the city so much that he actually gets out of his car at drive-throughs too. He doesn't go through the line.
Hey, I've seen a few coal smoky buildings in Boston, right? I mean, Boston has the disadvantage of having had that going on since like the 1600s. So you got to be particularly aware of that there, right?
Love that.
The streets are about as wide as a horse or two. So.
Matt, you don't miss anything. I love that. So thank you. And also, just to close the loop for everybody, Matt is from Boston, still makes his home in the Boston area. All right, we're gonna shift gears, but I want to bring this in from Josh really quick since Matt went there. Josh says the world won't end if you walk in a restaurant or coffee shop. Like Greg said, it was faster for me to go into the local store versus the drive-through. Absolutely, Josh. I'm with you. Okay. So let's shift gears for a minute. So we're going to dive into some of the things that you're observing there and doing, and some of the conversations you're having, some of the folks you're all working with there at Six River Systems. And I want to start, Matt, with this interesting article via Modern Materials Handling.
Right.
So as we all know, the labor market is extremely challenging at all levels in a variety of functional areas as well. The Peerless Research Group, according to this article here, conducted recent market surveys, and they found a couple things here. I'm going to summarize a few things that stood out to me. First, only 1/3 of supply chain professionals surveyed feel that their companies are, quote unquote, highly prepared to meet demand with current staff in place. Secondly, 2/3 of those surveyed have attempted to increase wages to keep the team members they currently have on the team in place, right, for retention purposes. And then I also want to share this data from the survey as well. So check this out. Look at some of the ways that these companies have attempted to deal with talent shortages, including at the top, cross-functional training, and a few other things there. So with this as a backdrop, Matt, I want to start with you. What stands out to you, whether it related to the labor market, this survey, this specific information here?
It's a good one. And, these numbers seem to make sense from when I've gone around and walked around our customers' warehouses and things like that. I definitely see a lot of cross-functional training. They see where the gap is on a given day because, unfortunately, a lot of our customers and general folks in warehousing and fulfillment just don't have enough people. So they're constantly shifting the labor pool from job to job or task to task. The other thing that jumps out to me here is the implement new technologies, only down there at like 23%. And I really think there's an opportunity for automation to help out here. I mean, I've been in the automation space for the last decade. I've been in warehouses and manufacturing plants all across the world. And I really think automation can really help people out and get them, to do more. And it isn't the story of like taking things away from people. It's about adding capacity and adding that flexibility. And it helps with that number one thing of like employee retention.
So, Greg, I was to kind of follow up on what Matt shared in there. I was kind of really surprised that new technologies was so far down in this set of data. Your thoughts, Greg?
I think it's the main reason for that is because we're trying to solve a labor issue with typical labor solutions, the status quo or the legacy labor solutions that we've had all throughout our past. And I think we need to think in new ways. Look, we say this frequently, Matt, and we've recognized this statistic, as you probably have, and we talk about this a lot on supply chain now. In 2019, there were 44 million supply chain professionals in North America alone, and 2 million open jobs in 2019. Now there are more jobs required and fewer people to do those jobs. So even more job openings. That was nearly a 5% unemployment rate in this industry alone. And it's much, much higher than that. And some of those jobs, I call it the 3Ds, dark, dirty, and dangerous. Those jobs will never be filled by the incoming generations. In fact, they were left at a higher rate than expected by the people doing them, mostly baby boomers, over the last 2 years, and will likely never be filled. I think, and I often say this a little more strongly than you, which I can because I don't have to temper my statement, so I'm not trying to sound salesy, right? I mean, if you say it, you sound pitchy. If I say it, I sound like an idiot. But nonetheless, I'm right. And that is that automation and technology is not an advantage. It is, the word of the day, compulsory. It is absolutely necessary because some of these jobs will never again, ever be filled by human beings. And frankly, technology can do it at such an incredible rate, more effectively than human beings ever could. There's no reason not to. And as you said, I believe we are past apologizing for technology taking people's jobs. Technology will now take jobs that humans don't want anyway and elevate humans to do those things that they do so much better than technology. So it's staggering that it is so low, but at the same time, the shift of mind space to think of it in a different, I didn't say MySpace, mind space, to think of things in a new way or with new solutions takes time, right?
Yes.
Even in the situation where we have a catastrophic disruption like we've seen over the last couple of years.
All right. So Matt, your thoughts there, and we're gonna talk about what Six River is up to in a few moments. But your thoughts on what Greg shared.
I totally agree. I mean, I'll tell you guys a little story. When I first started out, the first time I worked at a robot company a while back, my mother was proud of me that I got a new technology job, but angry at me because I was going to steal people's jobs. My parents are blue collar. I grew up blue collar until I went to college, working construction and everything else. And that was like her lecture to me, like, you're stealing people's jobs. And I was like, Mom, and still to this day, I'm not. I'm helping business to survive. We want these American-made companies, and we want things now. We can't find enough people to enable that here,
Right.
And so with automation, we're really helping people do more, and we're also helping people take on new jobs they never thought of. I was at a customer last week in the Midwest, and there's a guy there. His responsibilities, he's in charge of our robots. That wasn't in his career path. He didn't think about that, and it's a new, exciting thing for him to do and be a part of.
All right, so Greg, we've talked a lot about that here in the last couple of years, right? Because that's a part of the reality that automation offers, right? These things that are outside of current paths. All of a sudden, folks that lean in and can see this as an opportunity, they're going to get trained up and add more to their tool belt, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And they can also be elevated to jobs that are much more satisfying for human beings, right? And can you throw up those stats again, Scott? Because I'm curious. Think about what the incoming generations want as a draw for a job, right? They want a sense of purpose, a higher calling, that sort of thing. None of that is in here either. So how far are we off the mark as management leaders not to be acknowledging and trying to hire or redevelop the organization for that aspect as well? And again, I think technology enables that. It enables the human to do something that is more fulfilling, that is more purposeful, and much, much higher purpose than, making sure this nut is tightened to 6 foot-pounds or whatever, right? I mean, it's it's just, I feel like we're still a bit off the mark, but yet another disruption, right? Next time, maybe the ship gets crossways in the canal or in the channel in Baltimore, and then we really start thinking about it. these kind of disruptions. But
I'm going to bring in a couple. This cross-functional training got a couple people's attention.
yeah,
Sylvia
I saw
says
that.
cross-functional training is the key. Going back 40 years in the German apprenticeship program in freight forwarding, we had to touch on every aspect in the logistics supply chain. It has not changed in 4 decades, Sylvia says. Love
Well,
that.
there's good and bad there, I think, right? I mean, that they had cross-functional training is very good. That cross-functional training maybe not hasn't changed. That requirement probably still exists. Hopefully, the approach has changed somewhat over the last 4 decades.
Right. T Squared says the cross-functional training is a must, but it's grossly lacking the need for upskilling. It's grossly lacking without the need for upskilling, perhaps. T Squared holding down the fort for us on YouTube. Great to see you here today. Mohib says cross-functional training increases resource capacity and flexibility. However, it tends to reduce specialization. That's a good point. It's all about prioritizing the trade-offs needed at the time. Matt, whether it's cross-functional training or something else that comes to mind. By the way, I love the stories, of you out in the market, kind of seeing these things play out, seeing what it means for both companies and their teams and the consumer. Because I hate to use that word. Whenever I say win-win-win, I feel like I'm selling something, but we're creating good value for all parties.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing. One of the things we do here at Six Rivers, we go out and visit a lot of our customers at their peak time. So right before the holidays, and we send anybody who wants to go in the company to go visit, because we don't want to just be there when it's like the ho-hum daily basis. We want to see what it's like when it's really happening. And I did that this year for about 4 days, and it was remarkable to see like the operations really humming and everything else, and seeing our products fly around. Just have these little anecdotal chats with folks on how they're doing, what makes their lives better, and what's challenging, and things like that.
Going to the Gemba, Matt, is what you're doing for sure, where the value is created. All right, so Matt, I want to ask you, and Greg, let's talk about what Six River Systems does for the 3 people that may be tuned in across the world that may not know, because y'all been on quite the move in recent years. What does Six River Systems do, Matt?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, we are a solution provider, and we look at it as a solution. You heard me refer to working in robotics or our robot, but it's not all about our robot. We're helping customers, whether they're 3PLs, e-com, business to business. We've got a whole system that is optimizing for the fulfillment in your warehouse. We're going to look what you have. We're going to integrate with the WMS, and we're going to push the orders to the robot. And the robot does sort of the 3Ds that Greg was talking about. The robot goes, it leads you where to go, it shows you what you have to pick, and then it carries all of the products for you. So you're not pushing this heavy rack around all the time, right? And so we're all about like optimizing your warehouse and making sure if you do have those labor shortages, we're going to make you more productive. We're going to increase your efficiency across the board. And it really does, like I was talking about, like people are happy to use them too, because it makes their life easier. Like I was talking about, there's a picture on there, right? I was with a customer a couple months ago, and he's like, Matt, I can't tell you how many times with our old system, I would be the end of the day, I'm tired, cognitive recognition is out the door because I've been walking around for 10 hours and I've gone to aisle 1 instead of aisle 10. He's like, I've never made that mistake with your system. It just leads me there. So I don't have to worry. It makes my job easier at the end of the day. I mean, we've all done this, right?
Right,
like,
sure.
At the end of the day, you're trying to crank something out and you're like, oh, I just went to the wrong place, or, something like that.
It's human. We all certainly have done that. And these folks are working hard. There's more and more demand on what they do. And one thing, and Greg, I'll get you to touch on this as well, but what I love you speaking to there is that employee experience, right? How can we take better care of our teams? How can we put them in better, safer, more productive, but more rewarding and fulfilling that Greg has spoken to? How can we really love on them for all that they do for industry and our organizations? Greg, your thoughts?
Immediately what came to mind was personal shopper, right? Oh, you need this? Let's go over here. I'll show you where it is. right? And then it carries it around for you
Right.
while you go on to the next thing. That could actually be a little bit of fun. I mean, I have done some picking in a warehouse, and believe me, it's not the most rewarding job, right? But man, something like that where I could go, oh, there it is. Carry that around for me, would you, Ponton?
Come on, Chuck. Well, now I gotta circle back on something with you, Matt. Maybe we're gonna have to have Miss Fitzgerald, your mother, on, because if all that stuff isn't cool and isn't good for, you know, our teams, employees, folks coming into industry, folks already here. I mean, you make quite a case there. She still wasn't buying it, huh?
She might now. I think she balks at the word robot, and I think that's common for a lot of people in the industry. They hear robot and they think like loss of jobs, but that's not the case. And that's why we're Six River Systems. We're not Six River Robotics, because we're building a system that really optimizes the whole workflow. Our robot is definitely the face where the most associates use, and you're involved with that every day. But it's our whole system that we're trying to make things easier and faster for people to do their jobs.
I love that. You know, Greg, we have interviewed quite a few people from Six River Systems over the years, right? Going back a couple of years now. That's the first time I've heard a team member mention what Matt just did. There's a reason we're not Six River Robots.
oh, yeah.
There's a reason we're not Six River Robots. We're
Right.
Six River Systems. That's an important distinction, right?
I think it is, because first of all, the precise use case, Matt, you described includes a human being, right? What it isn't doing is replacing the human being. What it is doing is augmenting the human being, and it creates a safety barrier, right? By not having them wandering around in a daze in the distribution center or fulfillment center or whatever, but also in carrying those objects as they move throughout the warehouse as well. So I think that's an important thing to acknowledge. Your mom surely could not argue with that, right? And by the way, I would never encourage putting someone's mother on this show, because I have a feeling she could kick all of our butts, right?
Well, you know what? We'll have
to have us all convinced. Yeah, you know what? Robots are a bad thing.
We'll have to pin that for later, Matt. But regardless, I'm so glad you shared that. I'm going to circle back on a couple of things here. So y'all have got some cool events coming up. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, Matt. Mohib says, I agree with you, Greg. You can't pay these kids enough for the triple D jobs, right? Dark, dirty, and dangerous, right, Greg?
Yep.
Robots bring in more business so that they can do more value-added intellectual jobs as a human. It's a great point.
Nailed that.
Mohib. Yeah. And I want to, I completely butchered T-Squared's comment a second ago. He shared what this abbreviation meant.
He must be Gen Z, and you don't speak Gen Z.
Well, maybe not. I'm working on that fluency. But this is a great point he makes, because while cross-functional training is a must and it's valuable, as he mentions, it's grossly lacking with respect to the need for upskilling, right? Because it's not the same thing. It's two different things.
Yep.
We're talking about upskilling when you've got a technology, an automation solution that gets implemented into a facility. The employees naturally don't just cross train on different things. They've got to learn new skills and so be upskilled. And that's where some of the value is that we're all speaking to. So thank you, T-Squared. Yes, WRT, with respect to, lesson learned. Okay. So Matt,
this is like Duolingo live.
Right.
I want to learn Gen Z.
Yeah, seriously. But great point, T-Squared. So Matt, I think we've shared what Six River Systems does. And again, I love that your comment there. It's not robotics, it's systems. It's such an important point. But let's talk about Modex. Modex is, as you know, we've been, Greg, numerous times. We broadcast there the last time they were in Atlanta officially in 2020. It's been
right before the world shut down.
Really. It's been described. I can't remember who I got this from, Greg and Matt, but someone shared that it is the biggest supply chain trade show in the Western Hemisphere, which kind of evokes circus, P.T. Barnum in my mind. I don't know, but big show, a lot of cool things going on. Some of the best demonstration, not even booths. Booths don't do it justice. They're like
many
tents.
factories and many warehouses. Yeah.
So Six River Systems is going to be there. Matt, tell us about some of y'all's approach for this go round.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be there. We're in booth 8832. Just got to make sure my notes are right. If anybody's jotting that down, I don't want to mess that one up. But the whole system I talked about, we call it our fulfillment execution system. And we're going to be demoing that. We have a nice setup where you can walk through a hand-guided tour where we're going to show you all the things about how we can improve the efficiency, work with our robot, our AMR named Chuck, and actually see it in operation and all the things. We like to really add value to all the walls, the 4 walls of the warehouse. And we have a pack station, so we'll be showing how packing out things, like the whole way we want to add value. But one of the things I want to highlight, and I'd invite everybody to come to, is we have a competition too. We have a what's called pick to win, and we have 2 real aisles, and you go head to head. So we can set you up, Scott and Greg, head to head, and we have a leaderboard and everything. Your name goes up in lights. So who's the faster picker with Chuck, and that really draws people in, gets them excited, and it gives you rapid hands-on experience with our technology, so you can try it out.
Matt, could you put 2 Chucks together to work and compete against like 2 humans? It'd be like that John Henry thing, right?
Yeah. So to clarify, again, for the 3 people that may not know this, but the bots at Six River Systems are known as Chuck, right? So when we're talking about Chuck, we're talking about the bots component of their solution. Matt, I don't know whoever came up with that, just pick the win concept Modex, but man, that is so cool. You got that competitive spirit. I thought folks, whoever's on top of that leaderboard, it's gonna be like watching the leaderboard at the Masters coming up in April. They're gonna be protecting that leadership status. But Matt, really cool. And we've got a link, by the way, we dropped the link where you can learn more about meeting the Six River Systems team at Modex. You'll find that in the comments. Greg, maybe me and you can pick a time and show up and see who can duke it out.
We should check that out. That International Affairs and Business Conference is that week, right. but maybe there's a day.
Let's pick the win, man. Come on.
First, it might be Monday.
We'll double check that.
What day does Modex start? Because Matt, I would do anything to go head to head with Scott Luton.
I knew you would. Next Monday it starts.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Monday
we'll have to
Thursday.
Check that out. And folks, click on the link to learn more about not just Pick to Win, but everything else that Matt and the team have got going at Modex. Greg, that's not all. In the words of the infamous Ron Popeil, love that guy.
Right.
Matt, y'all are doing something with Project Vert on March 30th, a really cool tour, networking session, adult beverages, I think, are involved. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So to build off of what you talked about, so our robot is it's a cart that has a scanner and a screen on it and everything else. And you get to try it during Pick to Win, and we'll set up Greg and Scott should they want to compete against each other. And it's a trade show demo. It gets you hands-on. It gets you excited about it. But we're doing a tour of one of our actual customers at Atlanta, Project Vert. And you could actually go see our product and our solution in action, because nothing beats it in context, right? Like, because you see this robot in a trade show booth, it's compelling, but how does that work in my warehouse? How does that add value? Well, you can take us up on it and join us on March 30th and go to Project Vert and see it, ask questions of the folks there, ask questions of our team, meet some new peers in the industry, and we're going to have a nice networking and happy hour after the event. So it's a really great one to put our technology in context and think about how it might add value.
I love that. And look here, Jose says, I am in. I am so in. Jose says, okay, I'm going to add to the so. Greg, your thought about the Project Vert tour?
I love that idea. If I recall correctly, Project Vert is a e-com fulfillment 3PL, for lack of a better term, right? Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to see how your order gets picked when you buy it on Shopify or a website or whatever, I mean, this is a great example of how it really, really happens. So I think that would be enlightening for a lot of folks. And maybe, Matt, just saying, invite your mom.
Nice. Oh, Miss Fitzgerald. Hey, we're not picking on you.
I mean, I think it might be good, because maybe the folks at Project Vert can convince her, if you can't, that people are not losing their jobs, right?
Yes, I love it. So Miss Fitzgerald, wherever you are, the Supply Chain Now team wishes you nothing but the best, and we appreciate all that you've done.
Yeah, let us see the
Raising
goodness in action.
right. That's right. Okay, really quick. I wanted to add T Squared. He's a proud Gen
Oh, he's
Xer.
one of
Like,
us.
yes,
Okay.
right. He is a Gen Xer. I want to make that really
Well,
clear.
he's a highly educated one because he also speaks
Right.
Gen Z.
Right.
So he's multilingual like that.
Yes. Sylvia is a big fan of the upskilling conversation, including what T Squared shared. And I want to add this here from Mohib. So he's speaking right to you, Matt. He says, Matt, I want to develop a mixed integer linear programming model with my kid before she graduates high school. What are some of the thoughts, goals, objective functions, and constraints I should pass to her so we can optimize and simulate warehouse operations? Now, Matt, I don't put you on the spot. If you're more than welcome, that's above my pay grade. You're more than welcome to connect with Mohib after today's session. But is there anything you'd like to share with Mohib there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think some of the things you want to figure out is like, what is your designed rates? What are you looking to get for a throughput? How big is the area that you're going to be operating in? Are you going to have more? How many, like in our system, how many robots we have? We have a whole solution team that goes in. It says customers are like, we want to solve this problem. We want to automate our picking process, and we go in and we ask all these questions. And like, how big is the robot? Or the solution that you're coming up with in regards to the aisle widths and traffic flow and congestion. So there's a number of things there, and I'm happy to connect. I'm on LinkedIn if you want to share some notes back and forth. I love that you're thinking about having your child learn more about this stuff, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Agreed, Matt. Hey, really quick, Greg, I'll throw it over to you for one of your last comments before we make sure folks know how to connect with Matt. But what Matt's speaking to there is, at least part of what I heard, is it's not a, unpack the solution out of the same box, same thing, standard, plug it in, and this is how it works. Lots of different levers, lots of things considered to truly, customize a solution that is the best fit for that specific operations. Part of what I heard there. But Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you have to consider what your layout is. I think a lot of companies spend a lot of time focusing on the industrial engineering aspect of a manual facility, right? And then that can either be efficient or inefficient depending on how humans interact with it. When you have robotics interacting with it, it's a completely different scenario. And I think that's one of the things you have to think about is you can actually take robots. We know a lot about Six River, and I've worked with other robotics companies where you can take a suboptimal environment and still be highly efficient with robots because they don't get tired. They can move fast when they know it's safe to do so, that sort of thing. And so there are all kinds of ways to attack this problem. And I'd just like to say one more thing, and that is I have met Mohib's daughter. And first of all, the whole family is full of geniuses. His wife is also a PhD candidate, and his daughter is unbelievably intellectual. And you can just see it in her eyes. We were having a conversation in a kind of an incubator space that had makerspace in it, and you can just see her processing everything that she was seeing and being said at the same time. So Matt, I'm just going to tell you, if you get in a conversation with him, be careful and bring a scientist.
I love that. And I also love going back to the front end of your comments there, Greg. It's not, you have an opportunity not only to automate, but also to optimize the operations and the processes and the layout, as it were. So, all right, Matt, really enjoyed your time with us here today. I love the stories you brought. Of course, we loved talking about Miss Fitzgerald and her take on industry. Who knows? We may have to revisit that and have her on. I think that'd be really cool. But, I know we had a little fun with that, but I think there are a lot of folks, I believe, that are still kind of breaking through some of the thinking that we've talked through, and then kind of how they perceive technology, how they perceive, the robots are coming, that kind of stuff. But we're making progress. And I think, Greg, as we go back mentally through all these conversations we're having, you can almost see it tangibly being made out across industry. But Matt, I know you've welcomed the post-show conversations, cups of coffee. and reusable cups and other things and no drive-throughs. But how can folks connect with you and the Six River Systems team, Matt?
Sure. I'd love to reach out. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. You'll find me there just under Matt Fitzgerald at Six River Systems. It'll be a quick search. And then, as always, you can find us all through our website. And we were talking about Modex there. And if you go to our webpage, we've got a link there that you can sign up for a meeting or sign up for Project Perk. So we'll see you out there in the internet. And then we'll see you in person at Modex next week.
Awesome. And Matt, just so you know, and all of our listeners know, we've got those links to Modex. We've got the links to the Project Vert Tour. We've got the links to Matt. So you're one click away from connecting with him out on LinkedIn. Matt, truly a pleasure to have you with us here today. Kidding aside, give your family our best regards. That's why we're here, standing on the shoulders of those giants. And we look forward to connecting with you hopefully next week here at Modex.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. This is a fun time.
You bet. Thanks so much, Matt Fitzgerald.
All right.
Good intel.
Thanks.
Man, I loved it. Really.
Yeah.
Good stuff there. Very frank conversations. And Mohib, I love your question. I love what you're doing, to echo what Matt and Greg are saying. How you're working alongside your daughter to really continuing to open up, areas of opportunity and ideas and passions of what maybe she wants to accomplish in her career. So love that, Mohib. Greg, really quick, I want to pop this back up because I've got the link now. Big thanks again to Amanda, Chantel, and Catherine. Folks, we want to invite you to join us. This really open, frank facilitation session. If you care, if you want to get involved and find a way to take action to help those in Ukraine, join us this Wednesday at 3 p.m. for our Leveraging Logistics for Ukraine session. And we're going to drop that link in the chat as well. But Greg, going back to Matt Fitzgerald and Six River Systems, I really enjoy when you meet a new team member for an organization you're familiar with, right?
Yeah.
And you think you know them.
Right.
And then you learn a couple new things. Matt brought it today, huh?
Yeah, I think you get. It's really interesting to get broad perspectives, even from within an organization, right? Though there are some really significant similar themes. I think Matt he enunciated what their greater purpose is in a different way than we've heard before, and I'm sure it resonated with people that they haven't resonated with before. So. That's a key part of having a diversity of people within a company. And that's why you want those different points of views and all of those different life learnings and ethnicities and genders and all of that sort of thing, because we've seen all of that here with Six River. We've seen a really broad cross section of who works with that team, and what they all bring to this is a singular purpose, which is clear, but different perspectives on that purpose, which I think are really, really valuable. Agreed.
Look forward to our next conversation. But big thanks to Matt Fitzgerald and the Six River Systems team for joining us here today. Pick to win, Modex. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be a lot of fun. I can see a lot of competitive people, including this guy right here. This guy, plenty of competitive people that are going to be signing up and wanting to win and be at the top of that leaderboard, right?
Oh, unquestionably. I have no question. But you and I may be close, in score, but somebody who actually does this for a living is going to go in there and just smoke everyone who thinks they're a supply chain guru, right?
So I don't know if Matt can hear us and Six River team can hear us, but how cool would it be to have like a championship belt like Hulk Hogan had or Ric Flair had to the winner? We'll see if they can up the ante, but regardless, y'all check out.
I guarantee you they have some.
They got something.
They got
You're probably not going to win a Chuck.
I was going to say you could win a little bitty Chuck.
That'd be cool.
Right? It's like winning an Oscar each year. Right? You like me. You really like me.
Well, hey, folks, hopefully y'all have enjoyed this conversation as much as Greg and I have had here today. Great to have all of y'all. Love the commentary. Yep. Love the observations. Of course, we learned that T Squared is a proud fellow Gen Xer. That was worth
much more hip than we are, clearly. Right.
I mean, and eloquent. with his.
Which I didn't need to know, but I appreciate.
But hey, it's about taking action. We dropped a ton of links, different ways you can get involved, from events and conferences like Greg's speaking at, Greg and Kevin next week, to Modex, to the facility tours that our friends at Six River Systems are hosting. That's really cool. To the humanitarian stuff, right? Because supply chain makes it happen. We're in a unique position to really meet a very intense need. So hopefully some folks will join us this Wednesday as we kind of just figure out how we can, wherever we are in our walk of life, how we can help folks in need in Ukraine and elsewhere. Greg, always a pleasure.
Likewise.
Big thanks to you joining us here today, folks. Whatever you do, whatever you act on something maybe you heard here today, take action. You got to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.